This is Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. This is a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers. I'm a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist, and I've been working with ADHDers for right around 40 years. I also have an adult son who is definitely ADHD, an adult daughter who may or may not be ADHD, but fortunately, her hyper focus is in the area of academics. And we're lately discovering, and my wife and I have been discussing it more and more, there's the high possibility that she also has ADHD. Had no idea I was getting myself into this situation, but it certainly is not uncommon, frankly. Okay, in the ADHD world, mostly we are focusing on kids who aren't achieving as we would like them to. Basically, they're at school, they're not turning in their homework, da 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 da. So the focus has really been more on the kids. And matter of fact, when they were first diagnosing ADHD, the thought was it was a disorder that you outgrew. We now know that that is not even close to true, that you don't outgrow it. It's with you for life. So adapt, adjust, apparently. Um, and we also know that it's genetic, it's inherited. And if there's a family with an ADHD child, that at least one, if not both of the parents, also have ADHD. Now, in my practice, private practice, this is frequently caused some difficulties that frankly I did not expect. Frequently, I mean, the ADHD family, you have to have both parents working together for the good of the kid. Um, but frequently in an ADHD family, what you'll find is that if the dad is the one who has the ADHD, he is frequently going to block treatment, going to raise all kinds of, I'm not going to put my kid on that junk, and, talking about medication, um, et cetera, et cetera. And so you would wonder, well, okay, this is somebody, and these are usually people who, shall we say, life has been only mildly, what do I want to say, only mildly um, positive for them. Let's just leave it at that. And they're the ones who seem to object the most strenuously to it because they didn't get any help, any medication or any therapy or any of that stuff. They suffered through it. And, most of them are the ones who just barely made it through high school. And anyway, are making money, but not necessarily, well, they're certainly not in any of the professions. Let's put it that way and leave it. Okay. So the deal when you've got one parent who's ADHD and one who's not is, I think, a little more common. In that situation, and this is a gross exaggeration probably, but it's my observation that in two couple families, if one parent has ADHD, then the other one is usually organized, sometimes to the extreme, sometimes to the point where you start thinking, this could be obsessive compulsive disorder. But the deal is that, and at least subconsciously, if not consciously, the ADHD person wants somebody who will organize life for him or her. And the OCD person, no, let's call it the organized spouse, enjoys the fun and excitement that the ADHD parent brings to the relationship. Well, this leads us to some interesting problems, because a lot of times what will happen is that the organized parent will get sick of having to be the responsible one, while the other one apparently gets to go play all the time. So, I mean, that's an issue, and it comes up regularly. And they're not, it's not a positive situation. It's why can't he remember? Or why can't she remember? Or why is there always clutter everywhere in the house? Or, any of a number of things. But the deal is, a lot of times that the one parent will start resenting the other parent. And of course, when you start that, then the ADHD parent is going to start resenting being, infantilized in his or her mind. Treat me like a kid. Da da. Well, what the obvious comeback to that is? Well, you act like a kid, so no, you don't want to go there either. That's a really bad place to go. And so the thing I usually suggest to the parent who is the organized one is that they reflect, first of all, on what bothers them about their ADHD spouse, what really, irritates the heck out of them, and get a good listing of those and see if those, how much impact ADHD has on those things. If you forgetfulness is, well, I asked him to, buy bread and milk on the way home, and he never remembers to do it, or something like that. Okay, well, that's clearly something that's symptomatic of the ADHD. And the cure for that would be, like I always say, externalize the executive functions, which would mean having a note on his phone or whatever, so that he has to look at it. But when you know for a fact that the things that are irritating you are a direct result of the ADHD, then that's something that there are compensatory strategies for, and you have to work together. If you beat him or her about the head and shoulders, figuratively, I mean, accuse them, get angry, all that stuff, you're not going to have somebody who's going to cooperate with you, and you won't overcome it that way. You won't succeed as a couple. So the real deal with all this is figuring out how ADHD is affecting all the things that are bothering you. And most of the time, what you'll find is that it's not that he or she likes just goofing off. It's that that's really the best they can do, and you need to kind of come to grips with that and figure out how you can help the other compensate. Okay, I mean, there are a lot more words I could use to say that, but basically that's what's going to have to happen. You start getting objective. Don't try to do all this when you're angry, upset, etc. But look at, okay, what have I been irritated about the last month, say, and then is this likely a characteristic of ADHD? Is this likely a symptom of ADHD? And are there other things we can do? Now that you've got your data in order, and you're kind of a little bit more objective about it. You're not upset. You're not yelling, screaming, jumping up and down, or whatever it is you do. Then you can work through it. Because very rarely is this just that he or she just likes messing around, doesn't really care, and wants to be a kid for the rest of their lives, that kind of thing. That they no, they know that they're not quite leading with the responsible sort of adult that they'd like to project. Other thing though, also is your ADHD partner getting treatment? Okay, because if they're not in any kind of treatment, then that's going to be a problem. Um, if they're seeing a psychologist on medication, uh, then it's a whole different ballgame. You get somebody you can go chat to with about some ideas for helping the situation and so on. That is important. Okay, it's important for you to have allies. Um, yeah, I remember she wins my award for valor. She's a non ADHD parent. She has a husband and 5 kids. 4 of the kids have ADHD, and the dad has ADHD. And she is the one that gets them all organized and does, I mean, an amazing job. Could she use some help? Heck yeah, sure she could. Um, but the husband is not at all. He's a fun-loving kind of guy. Took him, I think he said 6 years, maybe 7 years to get through college, but he did get through college. So he's got some determination, some resilience, all that kind of good stuff. But she impressed the heck out of me by, how she handled things. And that, basically if you're the parent who doesn't have ADHD, like it or not, you're going to end up doing a lot of the managing stuff. And and you don't want to be doing it when you're upset. You don't want to be getting on them when you're upset. And you want to make sure that you recall somewhere in your memory banks that you recall exactly what there was about this person that made you pick them out to be your partner in life. Okay? So that's a pretty big decision. Why him or why her? Well, most of the time it had something to do with, they're fun to be with and they have a positive outlook, and, that kind of thing. You have to remember that. That's what you bought in for. And that's, what you get if you can kind of keep the other stuff from messing up your whole day. Okay. This is uh, this is a really important area, but we don't talk about it as much. Probably because it's way more complicated. Now, with the kids, it's not nearly as complicated. But a lot of times we also forget that, in a family that has ADHD children, there's also most likely an ADHD adult around who may have some really conflicted feelings about ADHD and ADHD treatment and even ADHD diagnosis. Probably had a lot of bad experiences in school, a lot of bad experiences uh, with authority figures in general. So um, and those are issues that you should be dealing with ideally, and you have some kind of a family therapist that works with you about your child, and also needs to work through you with you about getting your relationship in order. And it has to be somebody who knows ADHD, because uh, you can get so much really bad advice from somebody who doesn't really specialize in ADHD and just thinks they can use, behavior management strategies, punish the bad behavior, reward the good behavior, and that everything will work out all right. No, ain't happening. Okay, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to know that um, ADHDers put up with a lot. ADHDers, I would say this once a week, I think. when they're kids, they get 70 critical comments per day on average. Now, you think about that and you think about what that might do to your self concept being uh, criticized that often throughout the day, every day. Yeah. And, if your partner went through that, and very likely he or she did, there's some scars there. There's some sensitive areas that um, you don't really want to hammer them for that because it won't be productive. Let's just put it that way. So get a therapist, get you into your logical space and figure out the things that are bothering you and how they're related to ADHD. Because by and large, that's what's going to cause the problems. They're going to forget stuff. They're going to forget stuff you just told them. But that's not really that they're trying to get even or anything like that. That's not the issue. And then you need to be able to talk to each other and work out how you're gonna handle it, how you're gonna compensate for this stuff. It isn't enough for you to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That doesn't work very well. So you need to get with your partner and figure out, hey, these are things that are sort of driving me nuts, and I don't know what exactly to do about them. And I thought maybe you'd have some ideas about how we could, make it so it's not such a big uh, problem. Okay, that's what I've got so far today. And we will catch you next week. And I might do a little more on this because this is a way complicated kind of topic. And there's a lot to be said for it. Anyway, so Dr. Terry James Gingrass, this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. This is a show trying to make the world safe for ADHDers because we need outside the box thinkers to solve the big problems in the world. We have a lot of problems right now, and very serious stuff that was going to take some original type thinking to solve it, or at least slow the problems down. Okay, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for topics, write them down and let me have a look at them, and we will do what we can to answer your questions. Okay, see you next time, and keep trying. Till then,